Hello YouTube, this is Maple here, and today I will be reviewing the Discus 2C Premium Edition by GotFriends. Keep in mind that everything that you see here is still in the beta phase. This is just a preview of what is to come. So if you see any bugs by any chance, just keep in mind that it will be ironed out by the time of release. GotFriends have decided to create a premium version of their freeware Discus 2C on flightsim.to. This glider will be on the Microsoft Flight Simulator Marketplace for roughly $15, as Jonks, who is one of the GotFriends developer, has said on Discord. So the main feature of the FES edition, well, the premium edition, is that there is a front electric sustainer, as you can see here, and we'll discuss about it when we get into the cockpit and when we are actually starting to fly. Taking a look at the exterior, there's not much difference from the freeware edition. If we go ahead and take a look up here, you can see that there are some small wheels on both wingtips. And this is just so if your wing ever hits the ground, it hopefully doesn't go into ground loop. Although if you try hard enough, it still does. If you look at the tail over here, you may notice that what seems to be the pedostatic tube, if reshade can focus, over here, has been moved up. So originally it would go straight, but then this one is on an angle. The reason for that is so that it can avoid the prop wash that comes from the FES when it turns on. And of course, they've added a decal to the exterior. Unfortunately, you cannot access the battery because on the real Discus FES model, you're able to open this up, you're able to add in the batteries and such, but maybe it will come in the future. We're currently here at Megève in France. It's near Courchevel, and we're going to go ahead and take a flight near here. So let's go ahead and hop into the interior and see what's in there. Okay, so we're in the cockpit now. Let's go ahead and take a look at what is there to offer. So if you look down below here, you'll notice that there are two covered switches. The first one is the master battery, which is included in the freeware version as well, but there's also the FES power switch, which just gives the FES electric power. Simple as that. So we can close the covers, and let's take a look at what's the difference between the freeware and the payware version. So if you look over here, you'll notice that the variometer has changed. This is replicating the V80 by LXNav. And compared to the one that's in the freeware version, there's not much difference. It's still showing the wind direction, you're still getting the total and your average air mass lift. You still have a volume switch, and you can still change between net and total. Now, these switches here, you can go ahead and press around. The top and bottom switches just change the look of the variometer. It doesn't do much other than that function. The middle switch, I'm not sure what it does exactly. Now, if we look down over here, we now have a LX9000 display bezel. The content within the display is not different from the freeware version. It's still the same as the freeware version. Alright, don't expect it to be a perfect LXNav replication, although GotFriends is in the process of making one. If you look at the one up here, this changes the ballast. So if I were to reset my view and you carefully look at the height of the glider, you can see that if I scroll it, the glider moves a bit downwards. Because we've added ballast, the suspension gets compressed, so we sort of get pushed down. The knob on the left is just a brightness knob, and this button is just a toggle for the rope release. This button over here changes the units from metric to imperial. This knob over here changes the McCready value, so if you look at the V80 variometer, as I scroll this up, you can see that a blue triangle moves up and down, and this just changes the McCready value. The knob over here is the radio, so if you're ever on final glide and you want to relax, take a good look at the views, well, just scroll this knob up and enjoy your time. But it's a bit obnoxious. Over here we have the canopy tint. It's not very noticeable, but you can kind of see that the tint is currently blue. I remove the tint, everything becomes a bit more yellow. This changes the oxygen, so if we look to the back over here, oxygen is currently removed. I press that, and there it goes. It's back. It doesn't do anything, it's just there for aesthetic purposes. This changes the nav lights, which is supposed to actually turn on at night, and it just makes your glider more visible at night, but in real life you would never fly a glider at night. And this is just the canopy cover. Now, the biggest part of the payware version is the FCU. So this is just where you can control the FES. And it's very simple to actually power on. Only thing that you need to do is turn on the switch and scroll the wheel just a little bit, and there we go. We got some juice. And if I can set the brake, let's put that back on, hold the brakes, and I bring it all the way up, goes up to 22 kilowatts. So now, as the temperature of the motor goes up, it's important that you ventilate the motor so it doesn't overheat. And one way that you can leave that is by opening up the vent at the front. So it cools down the motor so it doesn't get as hot. Now, you may be wondering, can I take off with the FES? In theory, you can, but in real life, you shouldn't, because it doesn't have enough juice. It's not much power from it. Instead, I should use it as a sustainer. So let's say that I'm going from this ridge over to the other side of there. And if I'm on the lee side, you're going to get sink, and you may not even be able to make it to the ridge on the other side. So one thing that you can do is you can power up the FES at around 8 kilowatts and up to 11, and you just maintain level flight all the way across. You can run for 40 minutes, so let's say that you are like an hour away from a possible thermal. Well, you can just drop it down to 8 kilowatts, just let the glider fly slow on level flight, and this thing will run for a whole hour. Compared to when you slam the power all the way up to 22 kilowatts, you're down to 10 minutes of battery. And that only can give you about 3,000 feet of climb or so. At least that was from my personal experience using this in the sim during testing. So there we go. that's the cockpit for you. And hopefully you see some difference between the freeware and the payware version, and if this is worth purchasing. So let's go ahead and get into the sky, shall we? At the moment, GotFriends is trying to make a touching cloud kinetic assistant integration, so you can actually have the tow line actually visible, but at the moment it's broken and I don't really want to use that. So let's go ahead and actually use the FES instead. So there we go, power it right up, hold the brakes, and set full power. As you can see, our time goes down to 10 minutes. But just slowly accelerate. Once when you go over this hill, you should definitely increase the speed. There we go. You should be off the ground by 50 knots. There we go. Good gear up. And climb out. So we just got a ventilation warning because the motor is going to overheat. One way that we can resolve this issue is to give it some air. And they'll say motor high over 70 degrees when to reduce the power. And we're going to do that because we don't want to damage the motor, do we? So we're now right at 70 degrees. So yeah, there are some thermodynamics which is included within the FES system. So although it's simple in design, there's a lot of stuff that goes in the background. And it's really cool that GotFriends has included that. So if we go ahead and cut the power now, we should get some lift. So the motor's turned off, the vario is still beeping, means that we are getting some lift. So we'll go ahead and climb up to 7,000 and we'll go ahead and return back to the airport. Okay, it doesn't seem that we're getting much lift anymore. Actually, we are getting a little bit, but let's go ahead and accelerate this by turning on the FES. So the motor spinning and slam it. Okay, so we are approaching 7,000 and we can go ahead and just cut the power. There we go, propeller is parked, and we can turn off the FES. Go down here, turn off the power switch, and we're now just a pure glider. We'll go ahead and do some speed flying. Let's go up to 100 knots. Have some fun with all this altitude that we have. Go ahead and do a loop. Let's run up to this ridge and see what's over there. We definitely shouldn't be in the yellow, especially when we're near a ridge. You may get some turbulent air in that you're in the yellow. You may tear off your wings, although that's not simulated in the game, of course. We are getting some sink over here, unfortunately. Oh, a little bit of lift. It's not much. Alright, let's return back to the field. Set the trim back to normal. There's the airfield. We're quite high, we can actually go ahead and do one turn. Lose a little bit of altitude in the process. Let's get the gear out. And that's better. It's getting a bit dark, so let's go ahead and turn on the interior lights. Lights up the entire panel. Okay, we're gonna do ahead and do a side slip. Should definitely decrease our altitude. There we go. Oh, that wasn't a slide slip, that was a forward slip. Keep the speed brakes open all the way. So that concludes the preview of GotFriends Discus 2C. If you want to learn more about this glider, you can go ahead and check out the Microsoft Flight Simulator forum post by GotFriends in the description down below. And that's it for today's video. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.